Have you ever walked into a room and felt the energy shift, not because of what you said, not because of what you did, but simply because you arrived? There's a silence, a subtle hesitation in people's eyes. They laugh, but it's nervous. They smile, but it doesn't quite reach their soul, and you ask yourself, what did I do wrong? But the truth is, you might have done everything right, because some people aren't afraid of your darkness. They're afraid of your light. Carl Jung once said, the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. What if you've done just that? What if your very presence reflects something in others they haven't yet faced in themselves? This is the untold story of your aura and why it might scare the world around you. Before we begin, let's be clear. This isn't about mysticism or New Age fluff. This is about depth psychology. It's about what Jung called the shadow, and what happens when your mere presence shines a light on what others desperately try to hide. You see, there are people in this world who walk gently through life, never fully seen. And then there are people like you, people who unknowingly provoke, awaken, disturb, not because you're loud, but because you're real, and realness is rare. Realness is dangerous in a world built on masks. So today, we're diving deep into the 6 subtle, profound signs that your aura, your energy, your being scares people without you knowing, and more importantly, why that's not something to fix, but something to understand and own. Sign: you see through people. Wouldn't they feel it? Let's start with something you've probably felt your whole life, but maybe never had words for. You see people, not just the version they present, but the truth behind the eyes, the pain behind the laughter, the question behind the confidence. It's like you can feel what they're not saying. Carl Jung believed that the unconscious mind speaks in symbols, gestures, and emotions. Most people miss it, but you hear it without even trying, and that's terrifying to someone who spent years hiding from themselves. You look at them and suddenly, they feel seen, not for who they pretend to be, but for who they really are. And to someone not ready to face their inner world, that is unbearable. So they retreat, they ghost, they shift their tone. They say, I don't know what it is about you, but you're intense. They're right, but not because you're trying to be, it's because you embody the mirror they've avoided. And when you walk into a room, that mirror doesn't speak, it radiates. Sign: your silence is louder than most people's noise. You don't need to speak to make people feel something. In fact, sometimes your silence says more than 1,000 words ever could. There's something about your stillness, the way you observe, the way you listen without reacting. It creates pressure, tension, not because you're judging anyone, but because in your silence, others can hear their own thoughts a little too clearly. Jung said, who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakens. Your quiet presence makes people look inside, and they're not always ready to awaken. You ever notice how people get chatty around you? They ramble, they overshare, they fill every second with noise. That's not by accident. Your silence, your calmness, it unsettles the noise within them. It reminds them of everything they've buried. So they cover it with sound, with jokes, with distractions, with anything. But presence, but you are presence, and that is powerful. Before we keep going, take a breath with me. You're not here by accident. If this is resonating with you, if you've felt this strange disconnect between how people react to you and who you know yourself to be, you're not alone. There's a reason you're still watching. There's something in you, something quiet but deep, that knows this matters. So if this speaks to your soul, you might want to subscribe. Not for me, but for you, for that part of you that's done hiding. All right, let's go deeper. Sign 3, you trigger people without trying to. Let's talk about the uncomfortable truth. You trigger people, not with your words, not with anything you do intentionally, but with who you are. You walk in with clarity, with energy, with self-awareness. And for those who haven't done that kind of inner work, you become the unspoken threat. Jung believed we all carry a shadow, a part of ourselves we repress, deny, or avoid. When someone hasn't integrated their shadow, they project it outward. So when you walk into their life, centered, aware, awake, they subconsciously project. They see you as arrogant, intimidating, too much. Not because of what you've said, but because of what you represent. You are the embodiment of everything they've suppressed, and so they react, they mock your confidence, they question your intentions, they label your intensity as aggression, but deep down, it's not you they're reacting to. It's their own unresolved inner world reflected back at them. You're not the flame, they are. You're just the mirror. Sign 4, you are comfortable in solitude, and that threatens the herd. There's something magnetic and terrifying about someone who doesn't need anyone. You enjoy your own company. You don't chase approval. You don't mold yourself to fit into conversations, trends, or social masks. You're rooted. And when others see you walk through life like that, free, untethered, authentic, it threatens their sense of belonging. Jung said, "Loneliness does not come from having no people around you, but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important to you." And maybe you've felt that. You could be surrounded by people and still feel like you're on an island, not because you're broken, but because you're different. You don't crave connection the way most people do. You crave truth. You'd rather sit alone in silence than fake a smile in a crowd. You'd rather speak honestly and lose people than lie just to keep them. And that kind of self-possession, it unsettles people who have never sat alone with their own thoughts. You are what they fear becoming, but also what they deeply wish they could be. That's power, and it scares them. Sign 5, your energy is intense, even when you're calm. You don't need to raise your voice to be heard. You don't need to dominate a room to be noticed, because your energy speaks before you do. It's the way you carry yourself, the depth in your eyes, the stillness in your presence. And the truth is, your energy can be overwhelming, not in a loud, chaotic way, but in a deep, magnetic, disruptive way. You've probably noticed it. People lean in a little too much, or back away. Some open up instantly. Others can't seem to look you in the phone. Because your energy is pure. It cuts through the surface. It doesn't let people hide, and that scares those who thrive in the shallow. Jung once wrote, "In each of us there is another whom we do not know. He speaks to us in dreams and tells us how differently he sees us from the way we see ourselves." You carry that inner other with you, and when people feel it, they either rise to meet you or run. Sign 6, you force people to be real without saying a word. Here's the most subtle and most powerful sign. You make people drop the act, not by calling them out, not by pointing fingers, but just by being you. People find themselves saying things they've never said, admitting things they usually bury, questioning things they once accepted blindly. Why? Because you create space. A space where truth feels safe, but unavoidable. That's rare, and it's sacred, but it's also terrifying. For someone whose life is built on roles and masks, you challenge their script, you disrupt their autopilot, you wake them up, and sometimes people don't want to wake up, so they push you away. Not because they don't like you, but because they don't like who they become when they're around you. That's the paradox. You make people more honest, and that honesty makes them uncomfortable. But don't shrink. Don't dim, because the world needs your light, even if it's blinding. Here's the part we don't talk about enough: being this way. It's lonely, it's confusing, it's painful, because all your life you've probably asked, why do people pull away? Why do I feel so disconnected? Why do I always feel too much, or not enough, or just alien. You try to explain yourself, but the more you explain, the more misunderstood you feel. You start to question your own reality. Maybe I am too much. Maybe I should tone it down. Maybe if I just... No, stop. There's nothing wrong with you. What you're feeling is the price of awareness. You are not too much. You are awake in a world that teaches people to sleep. You feel deeply. You think critically. You reflect, confront, evolve. And in a world of numbing and pretending, that is rare. So yes, your aura scares people, but only those who aren't ready to meet themselves. There comes a moment, a quiet, soul-shifting moment, when you stop apologizing for your depth, when you stop dimming your fire because it scorches those who've only known shadows, when you stop translating your silence for those who only understand noise. You stop bending, you stop softening, you stop explaining, and instead you stand, not in arrogance, not in defiance, but in truth. Because the truth is this: you are not here to make people comfortable. You are not here to fit in. You are not here to dilute your essence just to be liked. You are here to wake people up, to reflect what they've buried, to remind them of what's real, to radiate a kind of presence that doesn't beg for approval, but invites authenticity. Carl Jung didn't tell us to become who we are through pleasing the world. He told us to confront the unconscious, to integrate the shadow, to walk the narrow, terrifying path of the self. That path, you're on it. And yes, it will make you a stranger to some, but it will make you unforgettable to others, because when people meet someone who is fully themselves, it changes them. You don't need to convince anyone of who you are. You don't need to shrink your wisdom into bite-sized quotes for those who won't listen. You don't need to translate your soul into simpler terms for those who stopped seeking. You are not the problem. You are the reminder. You remind people of what they've abandoned, their intuition, their courage, their realness. And reminders aren't always welcome, but they are necessary. So if your aura scares people, let it, because your energy is not for everyone. It's for the ready, it's for the willing, it's for the ones on the edge of becoming who they were meant to be. And when those people meet you, it won't be fear they feel, it will be recognition. You are not a storm. You are the stillness after the storm. You are not chaos. You are the order that threatens chaos. You are not intimidating. You are illuminating, so walk gently, but don't walk small. Speak softly, but don't silence your truth. Stand humbly, but don't fold just to make others feel taller, because the world doesn't need more pleasant masks. It needs more raw souls. Needs you exactly as you are. And if you're still here, still watching, still listening, then you already know this message was for you. You're not alone in this journey, and maybe it's time to surround yourself with others who get it. So, if this spoke to you, stay connected, like, comment, subscribe, not for me. For that voice inside you that just said, this is me, finally someone sees it. I do, and I'm not the only one. This is your reminder. You were never meant to be ordinary. And your aura, it's not meant to comfort, it's meant to awaken.